she doesn't have her mic up yet. So we'll be starting here in just another minute or so. Okay, cool. I do that all the time. I'll be on a meeting. I'll be, man, they're just like talking right over top of me. It's like, oh, stupid mute. So, very cool. How are you doing in your studies? Yeah, yeah, good for you. Good for you. All right, we'll give one. Cool, cool. Well, I have some really cool stuff today. We're going to go through a lot of code, and I'm going to want some feedback because we're going to talk about, you know, what do you see here? And, you know, we're going to be in literally one, two, three, four, five or maybe even 6 different programming languages today. And the thing is that the logic is all pretty close to being the same. And so, Bernadette, remind me what exactly you're in right now. What module? You're in Python. Good. We're going through a lot of Python today, so good. So very good. Well, let's go ahead and get started. It is 5 after. I've taken roll call, and the first thing I want to let you know is that this is being recorded, and we will post it on the tutoring YouTube channel. So if you've got any issues with that, please let us know, and we'll have to do something. I don't know what we would do about that, but I don't think anything's too personal here. Another reminder, I don't have any problems with this group, but we'll keep it professional. We're not going to talk about your personal cases. The assumption is that you're a normal full-time student, and so if I say something contrary to what your SSR says, then I'm just talking in general terms. So don't hang me. Last thing is that I want to remind you that we give you a lot of time in these coding courses, and I had an individual just yesterday. I told her, I said, you know, get in and do these courses and do them quickly. And this might have been you, Bernadette. Was this you? And they said, well, gosh, my schedule says I'm supposed to take 2 or 3 weeks to finish this video. And it's like, you know what, you can do the video a whole lot faster and give yourself more time to code and to practice and all of that. And so it is perfectly okay. Hey, there's Kat. It's perfectly okay to go faster, faster than the timeline says. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to work in some code now. Does anyone have anything they would like to share that they've coded this last week? I can make you the presenter. We can look at it, and we could go through it if you'd like. If not, we can jump right into looking at a little Python code. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right. Let me. Okay. What's the site name? Okay. Why don't you walk us through what you did here? Let's see. Okay. Now, can you guys see it? You can't see my screen? How about now? Okay. 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 Yeah, I can see that. We go to portfolio here. Okay. Mm-hmm. You can see here that right underneath where we're hovering the cursor, it's giving the titles, which is really nice. That is a very HTML-y kind of thing to do. It's highlighting. It's got nice, nice. Well, this is really pretty cool. You know, this is a great. I can tell it's older, but you know, there's some really good. Um, Hang on a second here. I might have someone trying to get in that can't get in. Let me see here. Yeah. Let's see. I'm just going to type in here that we're in now. We just started. Okay. So let's get back to this here in a little bit. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to bring over some code, and I want to start in Python today. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at some code here, and we're going to be able to run this. And let's go ahead and go through it first, and then we'll run it. Now, if you're in Python, I'm using Notepad++ here, and it does take a plug-in. So if you're struggling with that, I'm going to see if I can have a video made which will help us to help you to be able to install that plugin, or you can do it however Jason does it in the video. What I want to emphasize is that there are a million different resources online, and you can use any which appeal to you the most. And so I personally use a lot of Notepad++. It's free, and it's a little clunky compared to Visual Studio, but yeah, that's what I'm using. So I want to just go through this really quickly. And what I did is out of the list, let me show you here. I'll be posting this up today in the in with the video. Come on, drag over. There we go. I have some helpful links here, and out of there we have some great different projects that we can code. And so I started with that. And so this little part right up here, I didn't write this part, okay? And so let's go there, and I'll show you what I added, and this is what I mean when I say to make it your own. Okay, so up here in line 2, because for some reason I don't like text on the first line, and I like adding lines after. What we're doing is we're declaring a variable here, and the variable's name is num, for number. And we're creating an input here, and we're casting it as an integer, meaning no decimal points. Okay? And then we have this neat little thing that just says, hey, please choose a number to divide. This was one of the things on one of those links. And so what they're saying is okay, what we want to do is we want to know, we're going to have this whole list of numbers. And they're creating a range. They're calling it list range. And they're saying the range is going to include numbers between the number 1 and 1 higher than the number that the user inputs here. Okay? And so if the number is 10, this is going to say 1, 11 is what's going to come in. And one thing I wanted to ask is, what do you think, that this is the comment thing, so we're commenting out, meaning that the program will not look at anything after this hashtag where it's green. Right here we have, I said, what would happen if we did list range 1, number plus 1, which is what it says, comma 2. You guys have any ideas what that might give us? Wild guesses are acceptable here. No? Boy, you guys are all being bashful. Did I lose everybody? Everybody's muted. No, it's all right. So, so Kat, you have any ideas? You're probably the most experienced here. Now, right here, right in this where right now we're just getting a range, but the comma 2. Any ideas what that would do for us? Okay, it's okay. What was that? Almost. You're thinking down the same road, but we would just put a num plus 2 there, wouldn't we? What it is? What go? Actually, it's an increment value. So yeah, so it's an increment value. So in this range, if we just wanted every other number, that's what we do. If we want it by, if we're not casting it as an int, if we cast it as a float, a decimal point, we could do it in halves. We could put a 0.5 there and give us 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and it would increment us up. And so this gives us, yeah, and so it gives us this range. And what's nice about this range is this is an interesting thing, because this test here is just going to give us the whole divisors, whole number divisors. So what we're doing is we're creating an array, and for those of you who don't know, an array is simply a container that stores data. Okay, similar to this range here, but this array, we're going to stuff numbers into it. Okay, and so right here we're doing a for loop, and a for loop is a neat thing. A for loop, what it does is it goes through that loop until we tell it to stop. So what we're doing is it's going to go through for number in list range, so it's going to go through as many times as there are numbers in this range. And if the number, does anyone know what this symbol means right here? I know it's a percentage sign, but do you know what it means in coding? It's not a wildcard. It is. It's called a modulus. And so, yep. So if we're going to do 5 divided by 2, right, we know that's going to be 2.5, right? But if you're looking at the modulus, that 2 will go into 5 2 whole times, and there's a 1 left over. So 5 modulus 2 is 1. And that's a really, when you first get into coding, that is a kind of a weird concept. You think, when on earth am I going to want to know that? But the reality is there's actually some really good applications for it. And in this case, what we're saying is if the modulus is 0, equals means, is it really 0? Because if it was just 1 equals, it'd try and set a value there. But if it's really equal to 0, what does that mean? That means we had a whole number, right? And so what we're doing, and then those whole numbers are getting pushed into divisor list, into our little compartment here that holds numbers. And so it's going to go through and say we have a divisor, and say we plug in on line 2, we plug in the number 10. Okay, so we're going to get a 1, because it would come back as a 10, modulus 0, right? We're going to get 2, we're going to get 5, and we're going to get 10. Okay, so let's take a look and see how this works here. I'm going to run it in my Python test. I better drag it over into the window. Please choose a number to divide. I'm going to put in 10. And there we go. The even divisors of 10 are 1, 2, 5, and 10. And this is our divisor list right here. It's even in the brackets. You see that? And so it pushed those in there. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is down here. Once we had it, we told it to print the even divisors. So the even divisors of something are something. And in Python, we have this neat little thing called the format function. And it's neat because what it does is when you put that in there, that's referring to these little curly brackets here. It's going to stuff in the curly brackets the values of variables. So what we're doing is we're coming all the way back up here to num, which we put in. We put a 10 in there, right? And so it's stuffing that value 10 into there. So the even divisors of 10 are, and then we're going to stuff in the numbers in the divisor list. And as you can see, that's exactly what filled in. Now it comes in the order you put it in here. So if I move divisor list to first, it would look a little funny, right? Okay. The next thing we're going to do, and I know this is probably overloading you a little bit because you guys aren't that far into it. Bernadette, you're into Python. Have you had a chance to do anything like this so far? Because some of this is a little bit advanced, but what I want to do is I just want to kind of expose you guys to it, and then we're going to play with it. Okay. In every language, there's something similar to this, a while statement. It just means while something is true, or while a certain condition is met, we're going to keep doing a loop, kind of like a for loop. And so it was really interesting that Ben was in here today. He's my partner in crime when it comes to coding. We actually have coded the complete LearnKey student information system together. And he was kind of playing around with it, and he did this sky equals blue, and we were able to actually switch this out to where it said while sky equals blue, and it worked the same because it's true. It's a true statement. And so what we're doing here is we're doing a little bit of error checking. Now let me bring this back up here. So these are the even divisors. Would you guys like to add or multiply them? Why don't we add, because that's the first in our code. I want to add, and so it added them up. 10, 5, 2, and 1 is 18. Pretty easy, right? You know, not earth-shattering code here. So here we go again. Once again, I'm doing an input. And would you like to add the divisors or multiply them? And here's an interesting thing. Dot lower. What do you guys think that could be for? And yet, it could be, but these are not numbers that we're putting in. So this is lowercase. So this is lowercase because down here I'm actually putting this into words. If it equals multiply or if it equals add, what if I come in here and I put in, what if I put in, should that work? You see where it says add, and I've got the capitalization all wrong? If I didn't have the lower, it would throw an error. And the reality is because I'm pushing it to lower, and there's also an upper. And it just saves you, because I could have done over here, if choice equals add, or equals add with a capital A, or equals add with a lowercase a and a capital DD. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. You know, you'd have to cover a lot of bases. Yeah, and so it's a really easy way to condition your data to go in and to be very readable and to kind of shortcut your code. And it's error checking. Now, if I come up here, I didn't error check on the first line item. So if I say, please choose a number to divide, and I say Carly, what's going to happen? I get a big stinking error, don't I? Because it doesn't know how to divide Carly into even integers, right? And so this is what we call error checking. Excel likes to call it data validation, and it's a good thing. It's a good way to take care of your code. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to look down. Let me see what time I got. Okay. We're going to get in, once I finish this, we're going to get into HTML, which will be a little bit more simple. Just to warn you, because I have a feeling I'm just hearing crickets out there right now. So I'm wondering if you guys are a little bit overwhelmed with this. So, oh, I'm sure. Okay, good. Here we have another if statement. And this if statement has to do with the while true. And an interesting thing with Python is that indentations count. In almost every other language there is, they do not. They're done as a way to keep things clean and easy to read. But in Python, the fact that this if is the same at the margin the way while is, means that this if is different. It's a different statement than this while. And so the thing is that right here I'm saying that if it's add or multiply, we're going to break and we're going to move on. But if it's not, we're going to go right back to the beginning of this while statement. So let me show you. So if we come back in here and I put in 88 and I put in C, or I put in 33, or I put in 40, whatever, it will keep going back there until the error checking sees an accurate response. You can see how that would be very important, right? Yeah. And so these are ways that I tell you, when you're coding, you're going to code and it's going to seem so logical the way you're doing it. And the very first person you let use it, they are going to use it in a way that you never intended for them to use it. It is Murphy's Law that, like, the very first thing they're going to do is they're going to go in and do something you never thought of. And so it's important that you put some error checking like this into your code. Because if you don't, weird things are going to happen, and they're going to get that error, like when we put Carly in as the number to divide, right? So what happened there was we came through, and when we choose either add or multiply, I'm having a if choice, because choice is this input we have here. If choice equals add, remember equals says, is it really add? Because if I just had choice equals add, I would have just changed the properties of choice. Because it's saying choice equals add, whereas this is saying, does choice equal add? That's the way it works. There's also a triple equals, which means not only is it really add, but is it in the same format? Like, is it an int, or is it a string, or is it a decimal point, or whatever. But equals is just looking at the value itself. So if it equals add, we're going to print, and what we're going to do is we're going to sum the divisor list. Pretty easy, right? Just all the numbers in there, add them up. Easy enough. Like I said to C earlier, was that there's always multiple ways to do anything in coding. There's another way to do this. Now, I like short one line, and sometimes I just don't think of it. Is there another way to do it? Yeah, this is all commented out, and I could have said sum equals 0, and then I could have done for I in divisor list, which is the for loop like we did up here. It's basically saying we're going to add as many as the elements are in there, and I could do sum plus equals I. Now, are you guys familiar with this? Plus equals, what that means? Okay, it's really kind of a cool thing. It is a very shorthand way. They do that in JavaScript. Yes, exactly. So what we're, right. And so this, we're used to saying, you know, a variable, where do we have a variable up here? Like for sky equals blue. We're used to saying sky equals blue, but what we're saying is we're reinterpreting, we're taking this value, sum, and we're going to add to it the value of I here, and that becomes the new value for sum. So that's another way we can do this. And the nice thing is I'm going to have these files for you guys. So when you're done, you guys can practice in your own code. You can mess it up, you can whatever, and reload it, and it's just fine. Now, whenever you have an if statement, there's usually more than one choice. And so what you can do is there's an else if. In Python, it's just if, but it means else if. So if it equals add, do this. And if it equals add, it will do that and it will break out. Else if means another criteria needs to be met. If the choice equals multiply, it's going to do this. And I had to do this a little differently here because there is not a product feature like there is a sum feature in Python. So I said product equals 1. And any ideas why product equals 1 here, but it would equal 0 there? Exactly. You'd never get a total. Okay, so we're going to run through this for loop again for I in divisor list, and then we're going to do product equals product times I, or it could be times equals I, right? Like we just said with the plus equals. Okay, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to print the product, which we saw happened. And then typically there's a default after you've got an if, you've got an else if, and then if all else fails, you can hit else because there's no criteria. It means just do this if nothing else works. And it says print this was not a valid input. But the question is with data validation, do we need that line? Possibly. And the thing is I think it's a good practice. But the reality is with this while true up here, it should never ever pass anything out of here other than add or multiply. That's the only way it breaks this while loop. And so the reason this is in here is because I put this in here before I inserted the while loop. And so sometimes you have to kind of go back through your code and you've got to check things out and say, oh, do we really need this? Now, for those of you in Python, which I think is Bernadette right now, and if any of you want to practice, there's a few things I would like you to look at doing this week. One is we showed how we don't have any kind of data validation on this input right here. I could put in a name, I could put in anything, and it just errors out. So I'd like you to try and figure out how to make it so that doesn't error out. Okay, kind of the while true loop here idea. And it would be something where we say there is a, what is it, it's a value error message, and you can look it up on the internet. I'm a big fan of making a good use of the internet, because a lot of professional coders do that. You can't remember all of it in all the languages. When you come into an array, this is an array. Remember, the square brackets are an array. And remember that we had, if I can find it, let me just run it again. Let's pick a big round number. What did I do? Did I change something? I must have changed something. Or maybe it just didn't like the number. They are. Yes, they're right. Yay! And so, yeah, they are pretty much the same throughout. So in this array, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to do some research, and I'd like you to find a way to pick out certain numbers and add them together. You could pick out the second and the fourth or the fifth or whatever, and you should be able to pick that out of the array and add them together or display them or do something like that. Because this is something that they talk about on the exam, is being able to pick numbers out of an array. And so what you'll do is you'll end up saying, hey, it's going to be the second number, it's going to be the fourth number, or whatever you choose. And so that's another thing I'd like to see you guys do this week, and you know, do a print and show it off. And the last thing for the Python is, like I said, if you don't know how to do it, try and hit the internet. There are thousands of websites that will help you. But you know what? If you get stuck, send me an email. I'm more than happy to help you guys whenever you guys need help. Okay? I don't know if Python does either. I'm still relatively novice in that, but that is definitely a JavaScript type of thing. And you could definitely do a switch, which is, it's what she's referring to. What she's referring to is if there are multiple if and else ifs, it can get to be kind of monotonous if you've got, you know, a bunch of different options here. And so the switch is kind of a shortcut. JavaScript is a very shortcutty, very kind of elegant language. And so we'll be going to that in just a second. If you have any questions on Python, if not, I'll move on to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's used for all kinds of things. It's used for anything from scientific equipment. It's used in some proprietary hardware, but it can also be translated into JSON, which is an abbreviated JavaScript language, and it can be used a lot of places. Now, I don't remember if I told you guys this story, but my son, he just graduated as an engineer from the University of Texas at Austin, and he had a good friend down there that had a psychology degree and didn't want to teach, which I don't know what you do with that degree at that point. Well, they knew a guy that was a business owner, and this guy with a psychology degree, he was a really smart guy, but he had never coded before, and his friend was a business owner, had a coding business, and the guy said, you know, if you learned Python and you understood some calculus and how it works in Python, I could give you a job. Well, the guy spent, I think it was 4 or 5 weeks. Maybe it was a little bit longer than that, but it wasn't that long. And he hit it hard. He hit the Python courses up. He got artificial intelligence for dummies, and he brushed up on his calculus. And after that short amount of time, his friend offered him a $100,000 job. Yes. So there is a big demand in the field for Python. It's a biggie. I guess, I don't know. I don't know, but it's definitely usable. And when you get to some of the sites that support and they give you tutorials for Python, you'll see there's a lot it can do. You know, different languages have their different niche applications, but it's pretty versatile, and you can do some really neat stuff with it. So that's a good thing. Any other questions on Python? Crickets? Okay. Well, we're going to go over to this page I lovingly call Brian's test HTML. And this was when I was taking the 382 exam. This was something I practiced on. And there are functions. There is JavaScript in here. And there are no functions in HTML. Now I'll show you. Let me jump over to this. This is as exciting as my page is. Okay. And so the neat thing is I didn't have to host this anywhere. I was able to, right here, under Run, you can say Launch in Chrome, and it launches it. You don't have to host it anywhere. You can test it right now, and you can update it, and you can test it again and again. And that's something really important in coding, is that you don't want to go too long between tests, because if you make a little tweak and you test it, you know right where the problem is. If you make 4 hours worth of changes and there's an error, it's going to take a minute to figure it out. And it doesn't cost anything to do that, so why not? So HTML and CSS are very simple. HTML is not a programming language, it's a markup language. It's hypertext marked up language. And so what we have is we have these tags here, like we have a head tag, and every time you open a tag, you have to close a tag with using the slash before the name. So that's a big deal. You can see it right here with style. I'm going to open a style tag. I'm going to close a style tag. And the indentations don't matter. They're there for your convenience. But this is how the browser knows how to interpret what you're doing. Okay? You'll see here that it says w3.org here. I love that website. W3 Schools is amazing. And did I cheat to start to create this? Heck yeah. We reuse code all the time. And you're going to get to where you're writing something, you write a really cool thing in your code, and you're on another project and you go, you know what? I've got 80% of that done in this other file. You go grab it, you copy it, you paste it, you make your little tweaks, and you saved yourself a lot of time. Okay. Also, when you copy and paste, it's less likely to have errors in it than if you retype it all again. So in HTML, you have a head. And do you have to put this in? No, you don't. But it's a good practice. Meta character set, which basically means what's on our keyboard. Do you have to put that in? No, it's going to assume it. What do you think this is for? Title. Where is that going to be displayed? Do you? Yep. Yep. It's right there. Yeah. And so you can, it is kind of hard to see, and I apologize. Especially I think it's a clean display, so you can't really see it highlight that. But it puts the name on the tab for you. So that's a neat thing. It's as easy as that. I mean, if you just have to type title in brackets, put your title name in, and then close it in brackets, that's pretty easy, wouldn't you say? See, what do you think? Is that doable? You still there? But this is pretty simple, isn't it? This is pretty simple. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Very good. Yeah. So you speak of CSS. Well, CSS is done inside a style tag because what we're doing is CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. This is where we're going to make it colorful. We're going to make it, have different fonts. We're going to really play with it. You can do some of that in HTML, sure, but CSS is a really neat way to do it. And so right here, this is a little bit complex. What we're doing is we're declaring that the body is going to have a background, and we're going to make it this blue flower picture. Okay. It is not working on my page right now because I do not have that photo in the right folder. You need to make sure you have it in the right folder. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to skip. You see how it highlights the opening and closing? We're going to skip all of the script for right now. And we're going to come down, we close the head. Anything shown in the head tag will not appear on the web page. And so we're going to hide a lot of stuff up in there. Okay, I'm going to get into the body, and I have an H1 tag. An H1 is a heading, and a heading has a certain formatting. It's nice, big, and bold, and it just says, "Welcome to Brian's practice page." Okay, easy enough. It's an H1. There's an H2. There's an H3. I could make this H3, H3. I can save it, and I can run it in Chrome, and you'll see it's much smaller. So it's that easy to make a change. Come back here. And I think is it 6 sizes? I think it's 6 heading sizes. But people mostly use 1, 2, and 3 is the most common. Now, this here, the bracket with the exclamation and the 2 dashes, is the way to open a comment. A comment meaning the browser is not going to read this, and we just close it with 2 dashes and a bracket. And this is a really good practice because if you just kind of blur your eyes and I move this around a lot, it gets confusing, doesn't it? And so it's really nice to leave tags for yourself. It helps you to find your code, and it helps anyone who's working on your code to find things easily. And so what I've got here is this is a paragraph tag. It's very simple. All it does is it makes it so you can put your text on the line, and it gives you a carriage return afterwards. Please enter your name. Okay? And then a div. Kat, how would you like to describe a div? What's the best way to describe a div? It is. And you can do a lot of neat things to it. Like here, I have div, and in between the tags, it says first name, and you can see it says first name right here, right? And then inside of this div tag, because you see the div tag ends here, so we're actually putting something inside the div tag, which is this input, which gives us the box. We're going to make sure it's text, it's not a number, and we're going to give it an ID. And the cool thing is you can use whatever name you want for that ID. There are a few restrictions. There are certain words you can't use. I mean, things like div and things like that. But you want to make it as meaningful as possible. You can see here I'm using something called camel case, which means what we're going to do is the first word is going to be all lowercase, and then the first letter of each additional word is going to be uppercase. That's a great best practice, because if you do it the same every time, you won't be on another page somewhere else and say, oh, how did I do that? Was it first name with a capital F or a lowercase? It's a good best practice. Now style, remember we had a style tag way up here that was going to tell us how this thing's going to look? Well, this is an inline style, and I'm going to put that it's going to be aligned left, and it's going to be a certain size. I'm going to close my input, and I'm going to close my div. So what do you think? Bernadette, let me put you on the spot here. I'm going to wait to see your, let's see. See, you were asking, let me get down to the chat. Pretty cool. Let me scroll down. Bernadette said, so everything that's on the page you are showing is the your page. Yes, all of this is, well, is right there. It just creates this. And I know it seems like it's a lot, but it's really not that much because we're doing a lot on this page. We have a lot of click buttons. You see, I could have put some titles to hover under those. Wouldn't that have been better? We can do that. But when we have an ID, we're able to do some really interesting things with the JavaScript. And I'm not going to get there just yet, but keep in mind that wherever you see an ID, like we got one right here for last name, we're able to do something with that. Okay? True. And so we can do things here like, let me see. I could do title equals, and this is going to be, I'm just going to put click button. If I can type. And just as simple as that, if I save this, I'm going to run in Chrome. See how I did that? I added click button right there. It's just a little helpful tool to show what it is you're doing. Now, do we need that there? Probably not, but it was pretty simple to do. Let me come down here and get into some good stuff. We have some nice style things, and what we're doing here is I may jump to a little bit of JavaScript here just to show what we're doing with these IDs, because it's really the same all the way down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, keeping in mind the first name and the last name, and then we've got a div here with nothing in it. There's no text here. I could write no text here. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to run in Chrome. And you can see it says no text here. There's nothing in that div. But there's an interesting thing that will happen. If I come in here and I put in Brian T, I might as well put in my name seeing it's there, and I click continue, it replaced that. And so this is where JavaScript comes in, and it can be a lot of fun. And so I'll show you how we're accomplishing that. Okay, keep in mind that this div has an ID of full name. Okay? And then we have a question with an ID of first name, and we have a question with an ID of last name. So I'm going to come up here into the JavaScript, which starts with a script function, a script tag, and a function. And I'm declaring a variable. That's what var is. And you can also make it say let. There's a few other ways you can do it. But variable A equals, and this is a very common JavaScript element right here, document.getElement by ID, and then this right here is the ID. It's looking for the ID, and it's going to grab the value. So what it's doing is down where we input the first name right here, when we input the value, it's saving it as variable A, and it's doing the same for variable B for last name. And then we're doing something different with the getElement by ID here. We're doing document getElement by ID full name, which is where the answer is, and then it's dot, instead of value, we're going to push a value into this div. Inner HTML equals your full name is, and then I'm doing the value of A plus a space plus the value of B and an exclamation. So really you're just taking little parts and pieces and you're able to plug it in. What questions do you have on that? And then there's got to be some questions with that. That one kind of blew my mind when I first got into JavaScript. I loved it. Yeah, yeah. And if we come in here, it all uses, see, you were asking about, hey, is this whole stinking page just what I have over here? The reality is it's all kind of a variation of the same thing. If I go 5, and I'll put 20 here, click to see the answer, the decimal value is 0.25. How did I do that? I did a get element by ID value right here to grab the 5. I grabbed the 20, and then I injected this message right into a div, and I did it right here. See, I'm doing a get element by ID. I'm getting the numerator. I'm getting the denominator. I'm declaring that C equals A divided by B. And here I'm actually controlling how many decimals I'm going to show it to. If I wanted no decimals, I could put a 0 there, right? And so I'm doing that, and then here I'm pushing the answer, and I'm saying the decimal value is, and I'm putting C. So it's, go ahead. Yeah, yeah. And there's so many different ways you can do it. And so when I say make it your own, I truly mean make it your own. You can do it 100 different ways. Now let me show off one more thing that I'm doing here, is that I'm also able to change the background color on a click. And you know what? That's not hard either. And we can also increment up, we can increment down, and so there's some really neat stuff to do here. Now, we've only got a few minutes left. I've been long-winded today. Let's see, Kat, this week for your homework, I'd like you to take a look at this. Okay, I will post this link, and you'll be able to download this very file. I'd like you to clean up any commented or unnecessary text. I know there's some right up here where I had been trying to do something and I abandoned it. And so that's another clue for the rest of you guys. If there's something you're not using for now, don't delete it, because you may end up needing it back again. You can just comment this stuff out. Okay? Can you replace functions 3 through 6 with a single function? I'm thinking we can. Gosh, why are we doing this with so many functions? Can't we stick a variable in there that would change things? I think we could. Add a YouTube video. Rename the page in the tab. Add a photo with alternate text. Use the increment to do something. I don't care what it is. Do math, do a color change, do a whatever. Scroll through something, and find yourself an image to make that background image work. And I think this is a good little exercise, and I think what you should be doing is when you're going through your online expert class, what you need to do is you need to be writing down saying, okay, I covered these different things. I want to write a stupid, ugly page like this one. It doesn't have to be beautiful like, well, where is your page? I don't remember wherever it is. Here. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It can be ugly like mine. And make things work, because that's the way you learn. You're gonna mess with it and mess with it and mess with it, and it's key. I'll tell you right off the top with the Python over here, right here. This part right here threw me for 15 minutes. I couldn't get that doggone thing to work. and you've got to go online. You got to say, well, you know, you got to look at what other people are doing. And what I was doing is I was doing a list range with the divisor list. It was wrong. Something else that could be wrong, right here, Bernadette. I don't know which text editor you're going to use, but some of them just like input, and some of them just like raw input. If I put this here as just input, I get errors and it won't run, which is interesting because right up here, input works great. You know, I'll research that for you. One of the cool things is up in the run area on this Notepad++, and I took it out just today, is they had a shortcut to launch in Safari. And so it does have the ability to run in a Mac environment. And so, you know, I would try that, or if you want to try the Visual Studio, or gosh, there's 100 others. Where it gets tricky is to make the Java work. JavaScript is easy on these, but Java likes to run from the command prompt, which is inherently a bummer. But it's an older language. I'm not really too happy with it. But anyway, I highly recommend you guys play with this. Make it your own. Next week, bring something back, and I want to share the screen with you. You don't have to put your face on there. And let's talk through it. And the thing is as a group, I'd like to come through like on, where was it, right here. And if we run into something like this, where the functions are redundant, let's talk about, hey, how can we improve that to make it flow better? And does this work? Yes, it's darn functional. Is it a little sloppy and a little wordy? It is. And so we can talk about those things together. I have taken up a ton of time. What questions do you guys have before we go here today? Well, and another thing you can do is you can actually open up an editor, and you can see some of the code in here. And so, cool. But yeah, and what you can do is when you get a little bit more into HTML and CSS, is we'll talk about external style sheets versus internal style sheets, external Java sheets, all of that, and this will all make more sense. But you can always, on any page, you can open it up and you can look and see what's inside. Some sites are better at hiding things than others, but you can see it right there, and in some cases you can even mess with it a little bit. Let's see if it'll let me do that here. How about that? Did you ever think it would do that? And so what you can do is you can get in there and you can mess with the CSS. You can say, okay, I see how they're doing this. And does it save it to their website? No, it doesn't. As soon as I refresh, that's gone. But I could come in here and I could learn from Kat's different things in here, and I could say, okay, what if I changed some of the parameters in here, some of the settings, and you can mess with it. So it can be a lot of fun. So anyway, any other questions? You don't have any of these? Um, you know, I'd have to look at that. I know it's under run, and I'd have to look that up. I actually had Ben set up my Python for me. He's one of our tech support guys. But one of the things I'm planning on doing is I've asked him today to consider doing a video to show how to do especially the Python and the Java, because Python it's tough to do. Python is tough, but Java is really tough. Once you get the plugin, you can go to the actual Python website. You can download the app, and there's, what did I just do? Oh, I just launched my Python browser on an HTML page. That's what I did. But you can actually make it all work. So that is something we're planning on doing in the future. If you have some issues getting that to work, give us a call. I'll put you in touch with tech support, and they can help you install that. Okay. Are we good? All right. Well, see, what do you think after? What do you guys think? See, is that confusing? Is it too much, or is it fun? Mm. Well, and you could start slow, and if you wanted, I would give you free access to our HTML course so you could try it, and that way you don't have to make any big commitments or anything. Right. Well, and that's something that we'll just have to talk with your SSR about. So anyway. Oh, Six Sigma. Yeah. Okay.